This is episode 52 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Think Global. Think Global is a business advisory firm working with women entrepreneurs around the globe to scale their businesses to the next level. Today, I'd like to welcome Nicole Gravagna. Nicole is a scientist, writer, and entrepreneur. She earned her PhD in Neuroscience from the University of Colorado, then left academic research to commercialize technologies and start companies. She worked with Rockies Venture Club, a 25-year-old economic development nonprofit in Denver, Colorado. She trained angel investors and entrepreneurs to work together to get startups funded. After that, she started a medical device distribution company and sold it shortly thereafter. She has written 2 books, Venture Capital for Dummies, which was co-authored with Peter Adams, and Mindset, Your Manners, published in 2016. Recently, she founded NeuroEQ, which is a corporate training company built from the lessons learned in her latest book. Nicole, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with this piece. So you were in the academic field and you left. Like, what was the catalyst?
Really, the world had changed around me. So when I started my career path, it was the late 90s. And I'd finished college, and I thought, I'll be a senior scientist in some biotech company somewhere, some big pharma maybe. And I pictured myself doing that for my whole career. But by the time I got through a master's degree, it's been a little bit of time working. I worked at the USDA for a while in research, and then went back for my PhD. The world had changed, and hiring for R&D in large companies just wasn't happening. Instead, those companies were buying small startups, and that's where they're getting their new technologies. And so, here I come out and I'm like, oh, I actually need to learn how to do business and learn how to be part of a startup or be the CEO of a startup, which was hugely intimidating.
Oh, right.
That realization was like, okay, training is not over. Here we go.
Thank you, master's degree. Now let's start, right? On this. No, but I think that's a really good point, though, in that, and I feel like I'm seeing that more and more recently, in that people are getting their degrees in the field they want to practice, but they're also getting some sort of like entrepreneurship degree or not degree, but like, what do they call them? Like specialty add-on things. Yes. Certificates or, just taking some courses in that. And I think that seems to be a newer trend.
This is a new trend. Also, a little plug for Watson University, a small school in Boulder, Colorado. I'm a mentor with them. And it's a school entirely devoted to entrepreneurship.
Oh.
So you can get a 4-year degree through them in conjunction with an online university. But they're working on accreditation just within their own walls. And it's very focused on learning all the lessons you would learn in college based on entrepreneurship and based on building companies.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know about that. Thanks for sharing that piece. So you left the academic world and you tell us about that, that time. Like, what was it like starting your company? and did you come up with an idea for the company, or you were brought?
I spent a lot of time in entrepreneurship before I came up with before I started. Well, the first company I started in my basement right after college.
Okay.
I was doing web design work with some engineers, and we were actually doing what Google Analytics does now.
Oh.
But I didn't know it was a company. I seriously had no idea I was an entrepreneur. I'd never heard the word before. I didn't know I was starting a company. So, looking back on it, that was my first company. But having the identity of an entrepreneur came much, much later.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually working with angel investors through Rockies Venture Club, which is that nonprofit, after I finished my PhD. And so working with all of those, we coached hundreds of companies through their first fundraising beyond bootstrapping. And that's where I really cut my teeth in business and really figured out what works, what doesn't, and how to push things forward in a way that isn't risky at all. It's about knowing how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So then the company that you sold, how long did it take for you to found that company or co-found that company?
It was a funny situation. There was no technology that was mine.
Okay.
It was a distribution company. Like if you think about how do you get beer from the
Yeah.
manufacturer to a bar, that's a distribution company. It's essentially a shipping company.
Okay.
But we didn't have trucks. We didn't do shipping. We used FedEx. It was built because somebody I knew had built a medical device manufacturing company.
Okay.
And they needed someone to pull together a sales team that would go be in the operating room. So those salespeople actually stand in with the surgeons.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he would handle the materials that will be part of the surgery, like when they're not being used. So stocking, holding onto them in warehouses, making sure that they get safely from here to there. And it's very expensive stuff. So
Yeah.
it was, a lot of money in inventory that we had to deal with. And they needed that company built. And they trusted that I would do it in a way that would work for them, that I would be a good company to work with. So it was an opportunity that was handed to me. Like, here, I need this. Will you do it? And you benefit from owning this business. And I was like, well, this was like a conversation on a Friday at lunch. And my answer was, I don't know what a stocking distributor is, but yes. I figured the worst thing that happened is that they would fire me, right?
Right.
So that was Friday. By Saturday, we sat down, went through all the SKUs, the price lists of all of those materials that they had. And by Sunday, I was negotiating with a hospital. By Monday, there was a surgery. By Tuesday, there was a check in the bank.
Wow.
It was a crazy situation. And so,
That's amazing.
Building it and selling it went just as fast. I was like, it was cool to build, but this is not my gig forever.
That is such a cool story, though, because so many entrepreneurs, and not that there's like a right or wrong, but most of the people I talked to, they had an idea and then built it into a business. I feel like your path is so cool and interesting. And I think it really speaks to the power of like connection and relationship, right? Like you were just having lunch with someone who I presume you knew or were out to meet. That's a really cool story. So how long did it take you to grow it to the point that you grew it to before selling?
So it was running pretty well. I had 2 salespeople, and it wasn't like an infant that I had to feed every hour, which it was for the first couple of months. I'd say maybe 4 or 5 months in, it got to that point where it was actually sort of like a child that you could leave at home for a while.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which is nice. And then I'd say a few months into that, I was looking at the finances and I told the client, I said, this is not hugely worth it for me. Is there a way that either you can increase this commission for my business or that we could find a way for me to go?
Yeah.
And they said, okay, well, we don't want to increase the commission. That doesn't work for our books. And I said, well, I get it. So we left ways probably, I'd say maybe 5 months into it.
Okay.
That was the conversation. And when we came back, they said, actually, we'll find a way to buy it from you. They couldn't live without it. And that's why I built it in the first place.
Yeah.
But they also couldn't buy it because of some of the laws. They can't own that distributorship. So somebody else they had to find a buyer for it. And so they did all the hard work. They did the legwork. They did, I had a lawyer, a great lawyer, who helped with all the paperwork. And then it took 11 months start to finish to build and sell this company.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
And the majority of that time was finishing all the paperwork and negotiation and presumably them getting their cash together to actually make the purchase.
Yeah. There's something so inspiring about that. I love what you said about, well, I don't know anything about this distribution piece because like oftentimes I think as entrepreneurs, we forget there's still leadership roles in the company, leading the team who does happen to know a lot about that. Like there's so much value in that. And I feel like we as entrepreneurs often turn down opportunities because like, well, I don't know that industry or I don't know that model or whatever, but really there's insight that you bring that we kind of undervalue. And it often falls in that leadership and innovative thinking and, some of those broader buckets.
I have to admit that it wasn't the first time someone had handed something to me. And so somebody had handed things. I mean, I could think back to maybe 4 or 5 times in my life where somebody handed me some opportunity and I went, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And I instantly had this emotional reaction where I freaked out, ran away, and like, I don't know what that was. And so I started to really question that. I was like, you know what? The next time someone brings me something, no matter how scary it is, I'm going to say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah.
And that was that.
That was that. That's really cool. So what was the step after that company was sold?
You know, honestly, it was wake up in my bed and go, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. It's the reinvention piece. Like, where are we going next?
Well, I mean, it wasn't even my life. I only had that company for 11 months. But like, okay, my bills are paid. I feel like I did something productive. Now what? Now what do I do? And honestly, what I ended up doing was starting to answer Quora questions. Do you know Quora?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The question and answer online community.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
And so I ended up getting awarded Quora Top Writer for 2016 because I made that my job. I just would answer Quora questions.
Wow. What types of Quora questions did you answer? Did you have like a niche?
Yeah, I was doing venture capital and entrepreneurship at first.
Okay.
And then, so as things, I mean, you can't do that all day, every day, obviously, forever. You've got to start doing something else with your life. So,
wait, do they pay you for that?
No,
you were just doing it.
Yeah, and a lot of people do. It is a fantastic community. And what ends up happening is that when you start writing publication quality answers, pimp you out to publication partners.
Oh,
so
interesting.
A lot of my bibliography on the stuff that I've published came from Quora handing it to publication partners. And then, so Inc., Forbes, Business Insider, Newsweek, all of my stuff that's been published there came through the connection with Quora. So it was huge. But I started writing the book that I'd been thinking about for a long time. And it was this idea that I was a scientist, and then I started doing business, and then, all of this stuff that happened, it wasn't a long time. It was like 5 years from when I left graduate school to selling this company. And it was a lot of personal change. I'd gotten divorced during that time too. So that was a big personal change. And I'll be honest, I didn't do it gracefully. I was irritating to myself. I was irritating to others. I was uptight in my own way, driving myself crazy, trying too hard, trying to do a good job, and really killing myself over it. And
it's change, and change is hard. I mean,
there's got to be another way.
Yeah.
And so I started to research that. I thought, well, I'm a neuroscientist. I can read all this stuff. Now I've got a little time on my hands and I love to write. Why not dig in and figure out, why is change hard, and does it have to be? Is there another way? And so Mindset Your Manners ended up being the book that answers that question. Why is change hard, and is there another way? And it turns out, yes, there is another way. It does not have to suck.
Well, it does not. Can I quote you? It does not have to suck. That's so amazing. Because when you're going through change and you're not doing it gracefully, I feel like people tell you, oh, just do this, or try that, or, oh, if you just get out and go do some networking, everything will be fine. And it doesn't always feel like that. Everything will be fine to the person going through that change. So I would love, is there, what's a little highlight or tidbit you can share with us on how to make change not suck?
The answer is actually not solving the problem.
Oh.
So everybody giving you advice to solve the problem, that's a totally different way. Like, people are trying, here, if you solve the problem, change won't suck anymore. Actually, that's not true. Once you get past the sucking part of how change sucks, then you can solve the problem. Like, the solving of the problem happens automatically once you get through that pain.
Right. That makes sense.
Forget about solving the problem. That'll just happen. Instead, really look at that pain. Why is this hurting you? What's going on in there? What does it feel like? And reconnecting with your physical body, reconnecting with your anxiety. What is your heart doing right now? Are you sweaty? Are you angry? Are you depressed? And really sitting with that. I call it scheduled suffering.
Scheduled what?
Scheduled suffering.
Oh, wow. My heart just beat really fast. I felt like, oh, don't you dare put that on my calendar. Scheduled suffering. Okay.
So what it is, okay, I have something in my future that's really freaking me out, or something I need to do, like somebody who needs to find a job, for instance.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of students get out of school and they're really trying to figure out the next thing. I do a lot of mentoring, and they're in panic attacks all the time because they don't know what the next thing is. And so my advice to them ends up being something like, put on your calendar an hour, just 15 minutes or an hour or whatever, a couple times a day. It's sort of like a massage for your brain. And all you're going to do is sit there and face the way you feel. You're not going to do a damn thing about it.
Just sit there and feel it.
Just feel it.
Wow.
And what happens is that there's a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. And it's the part of your brain that judges how dangerous something is. And so if you sit there and feel that you're suffering and you don't do a damn thing about it, you teach that part of your brain that it's okay.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
And then it stops hurting so much.
Because every time we feel that, we're like, gotta do something about it. I feel this. We're reactive.
And when you do something about it, you teach your brain it's not okay. You're in danger. You've got to do something.
Reinforcing that. Oh my gosh. Wow. Maybe I will put suffering on my calendar.
It's worth it. I tell you, it's changed my life.
Oh my gosh. That is so interesting. I love that, like, we as people, or we as business owners, have so much more information about our brain and how it processes and how it, I don't know if reacts is the right word, but like even my kids, they're 5 and 8 and they're in elementary school and they're learning this program BrainWise. And our son was having some challenges with emotional regulation. And I asked what happened, and he's like, Mom, you know what? This trigger happened. It was stuck in my lizard brain. I couldn't move it to my wizard brain, and I did X. I'm like, wow, like that's a pretty good stuff. And I feel understanding more about our brain and why we're feeling the way we are and thinking the way we are, I think that is so helpful. Like, so even when you said what is scheduled suffering, I'm like, oh nope, count me out. Right. But you explain, I'm like, hey, that I get that. Like there's a reason to sort of build that tolerance and not reinforce that reactive piece. That's really awesome. So that's what you're doing with your new company then, right?
Right. So we do teach in a very professional manner. We don't call it scheduled suffering when we talk about it.
It's hard to get the proposal out with scheduled suffering in it, right? Like,
they don't even like the word problems. Entrepreneurs love the word problems, but corporations don't. So issues. Well, it's about noticing. So we have a whole program about noticing. And what you find is that, companies tend to hire people who have strong determinism, independence, the ability to, move forward, be efficient and effective, and all of these things unfortunately make you a crappy teammate.
Ah, gotcha.
So when you select for good workers, you're also selecting for a bad team worker.
Oh, interesting.
Which makes a bad leader, because a leader is also a teammate. Yeah. So what we do is we take really good workers, awesome people who know what they're doing, and we round out some of those behaviors to allow them to, you're not changing personality at all. Instead, we're shifting a little bit of value system so that people realize that they will be valued for their teamwork in a way that they never have been before. And within 6 months, we can see huge changes in someone's ability to work in a team effectively, efficiently, and to catalyze other people on that team who haven't been through the program. It's sort of infectious. Once somebody becomes a good teammate, they instantly make other people good teammates just by getting those people to pay attention to them.
That's really cool. So are you mostly working in the corporate world, or are you working with startups, or who do you specialize?
Since NeuroEQ is a new company, we are starting with a wide range of a group of people. Mostly to pull in as much data as we can for different age groups and different types of backgrounds. We have an engineering company that we're working with, and we have a university that we're working with. And so we'll start there and we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
We'll keep going.
That's really awesome. So as we wrap up, my last question is, you as an industry expert, what's on your radar now that you feel like will be a hot topic for the rest of us in another year or 3 years from now?
Artificial intelligence and robotics is changing the way we look at humans. We're starting to see the value in the way that humans work and the way that humans feel, and the fact that we have emotional reactions to things is no longer a detriment, and instead we're starting to highlight that as a powerful part of being human. I mean, all of the logic stuff can be handled by robots and artificial intelligence. Humans are the only ones who can do the human things.
Right. Well, I think that's really important. I think in the tech world, we're seeing so many companies pop up that are leveraging artificial intelligence for one reason or another. And to me, it seems like there is a lot of value in that, but I think it's a good point. Humans are the only ones that can do human. So can artificial intelligence be trained or programmed to do human, or not really? They just don't feel. That's the difference.
I've been thinking about this in a way that I haven't really been willing to go all the way.
Yeah, right?
It's very possible that you could design a fake organism that has the reactive triggers that we have. You could bake in certain beliefs, memories, histories into a robot that it would react in certain ways to certain triggers. I mean, just like your son was saying, he had a trigger and this was his behavior, and you could have a switch that doesn't turn on or does turn on that allows the robot to either react or quell its reaction. And you probably could create a very realistic artificial intelligence.
Right.
I'm not a coder, so I don't know how hard that would be, but in theory, it's possible.
In theory, it's possible. In theory, it also sounds somewhat terrifying, but I get it. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Katrina.
You're welcome.